Hey there, it's Andrea, and welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast. Today I have with me a colleague, Jen Heins. Jen, it is so good to have you here today on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
I'm excited to talk about what we have to talk about today because Happy New Year, everyone. This is, oh my goodness, I have goosebumps even though we are recording prior to the new year. I am so excited about moving into 2021. I know that there has never, at least in our lifetimes, I don't think there's ever been a year we've been more excited to get out of than 2020. And one of the things that I'm excited about visiting with you about today is just having a fresh start and moving more towards who we are and bringing ourselves to the world. So Jen, would you share with us a little bit about what you do and why you do it?
Okay. My business is Heins Design, and I am a certified Kolbe consultant and youth specialist with Kolbe. And my background actually started with art. I did original artwork for many years and then did picture framing and did that for 20 years, had my own gallery. And then it kind of morphed into something else after a period of time. And I started doing more digital artwork, more event planning, more helping small businesses. And in the course of all that I was doing, I had taken the Kolbe back in 2003 and loved it. And it really kind of changed how I viewed myself in the world and what I took on. And I appreciated my strengths so much more. And then around 2016, it kind of came back around in my purview because I had originally just always used it to kind of keep me in my lane, so to speak. So I wouldn't take on things I didn't need to take on. And then in 2016, it came back around. I thought, I really could use this to help my clients and help other people understand this as using this as a foundational tool. And so I brought that back around. And so now I've been coaching individuals and teams on how to use their natural instinctive strengths to understand their own creative process for their greatest success.
And I can say that Voice of Influence is connected to you. We really appreciate being able to utilize you and your expertise and your services for Kolbe and even for our clients as well, because we have used the Kolbe we use that with executive coaching clients and sometimes with teams and we can have Jen help us out with that. So Jen, tell us a little bit more about the Kolbe. Why the Kolbe? What makes it different than any other assessment? I'm personally just an assessment sort of junkie and I love them all, but there's a purpose behind each of them that they serve a different kind of a purpose. So what purpose would you say that the Kolbe serves?
I see it as a foundational tool. One thing, if you take any assessment and you're surprised by the results, I would question the assessment. Usually an assessment is an affirmation of what you already know about yourself for the most part when they're personality tests. And even Kolbe, the best part of Kolbe is when you get the results, it is you're perfect the way you are. You're awesome, and this is why. But Kolbe measures the doing. It's what you will and will not do. It's your instinctive problem solving nature. So where difference is that the Kolbe theory is that there's three parts of the mind: the thinking, the feeling, and the doing. Kolbe measures the doing, whereas the thinking, it's your expertise and your knowledge. IQ tests generally would measure that. Then you have the affective side. It's what you want, your preferences, your drive, your motivation. There's like Strengths Finders is a great example of that one. And then Kolbe measures what you will and will not do. So when you understand this, it really is so much easier to say no to the things that aren't good for you, or not take on the jobs that will cause you stress. I use it as like, so I can use it in a framework for an individual and say, here, let's find out how awesome you are and how you leverage this in your problem solving skills. And then you can see stress coming. You can see problems coming because it's like, oh, this isn't my area of expertise. And then you can go ahead and set yourself up with people who do have those strengths. It's a great base tool. And when you know that part, then you add the other discovery points to it.
It's the doing, how you do things.
It's how you take action.
I think that one of the things that you were talking about was avoiding things that are in conflict with the natural way that you take action. But there's also, I know that you've helped people that we've worked with, or even helped me to be able to see how to work with each other and the way that we take action, so that even though I take action in this way and somebody else takes action another way, we need to be able to communicate. We need to be able to work together and take action together to complete a project. So how do you help people to be able to understand how different people take action in different ways?
One of the gifts that I have gotten from Kolbe and understanding my own and other people's is I have a greater empathy for other people and how they work. So instead of just plowing through something, doing it my way, when I know I have a client that really needs more detailed information, I can slow down what I'm doing and make sure that I've gotten all the key points down to her, and I schedule more time for them to ask questions, because I know like a high initiating fact finder is going to want to know more than maybe I'm going to actually put forth. So I set myself up and them up for greater success by giving them more time to get more information from me. And so when you understand how somebody else works, instead of being upset, it's not that they're doing something to make you mad or to, get in your way or to slow you down. Sometimes it's just, this is their innate way. So if you understand how that is, you can plan how your interaction is going to go. And so can they. So if they know, okay, a great example is I am a 9 quick start without having all the information, right here for everybody to see. But there's 4 modes of operation. There's 4 different categories. And then you are either an initiating, a reactive, or a counteractive within that mode. So, for example, as a fact finder, you either would like a lot of specifics, which is the initiating fact finder. You would explain information, which is the reaction, the center part of the mode, or you simplify information, which is the counteractive side. I am a 2 in a fact finder. But as a quick start is how you deal with risk. So I am an innovator. I try things. I'm initiating a quick start. I will come up with a lot of ideas, and I'll test things out to see what will happen, without having the expectation that it has to work. It's just a tendency. Whereas somebody on the other end of the quick start spectrum, they're looking to see how they can stabilize things. How can I protect the things that should not be changed? As a quick start, I will have a tendency to throw out ideas and just brainstorm out loud. Where if I do that with somebody that is a initiating fact finder and I'm throwing out ideas with not a lot of detail, I could create stress for them. So by knowing that in advance, I can understand that maybe that's not the person that I brainstorm ideas out loud. That's the person I bring a couple of ideas that I would like more information to talk about details on. So instead of bringing that person all the ideas, I bring them the ones I've narrowed down.
And I find that really interesting, because it seems, well, one of the things that I've told my kids is that there's no really one person who's going to fill all of your needs as a human being. I mean, it's
No.
the same. The same is true in a work environment. There's no one person that is going to that you can just totally be your complete and utter self with all the time. I mean, when you care about somebody else, when you're wanting to work together, you want to meet them where they are too. You almost have
Right.
to do the filtering kind of work that you're talking about in order to be able to care for them as well. Otherwise, it's
Right.
kind of all about me and the way I want to interact in the world, and don't make me be somebody I don't want to be. But what you're saying to me, it sounds like you're saying, but you can be yourself while meeting people where they are.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it creates a different connection and a different appreciation for things. The other part is
Mm.
because I know my MO, I know where I am going to bring the most value with how I take action versus how I'm not. And so it makes it a lot easier for me to say, I really appreciate you wanting me to work on this, but I cannot work on it in that way and give you what you want because it will take me longer. It's not going to be as good. But this person over here is going to rock it.
Mm.
So you can hand things off. It's really kind of nice and freeing to be able to say no to things that aren't going to be suitable for you and be
Mm.
able to say yes to the things that are.
And to ask for to advocate for yourself, it sounds like,
Right.
to advocate for
And
not just yourself, but the work that you're doing.
yeah, for the work, how it's going to get done, how you're going to move down the path, how to be strategic and creative at the same time.
Mm.
So part of the creative process, the first thing is you have to be motivated. If you don't have the motivation, it's harder to get things going. So, but I've also found is motivation isn't always a super positive celebration kind of thing.
That's true. We can be motivated by fear. We can be motivated by being annoyed with
Right.
something, but an irritation.
Right. So
Okay.
one, you have to understand your motivation.
Okay.
Is your motivation coming from a good place or not? Then, so fix that first. Understand your motivation. Then, once you're motivated, that's when your Kolbe kind of kicks in and you start like what you will and will not do. So, for me, and I know you because you're also a higher quick start, the first thing we do once we're motivated, we have a million ideas and they just start pouring out. We can do this and we can do this and that's it's fantastic. And then from that we go to our cognitive. What is our skill set, our knowledge base? How is that going to move us forward to our goal? And then the end of that is the result. So you have your motivation, your action, your knowledge, your result. That is the process. But then when you have like a whole team of people, so like say we had a team and we were all quick starts, we would have ideas all day, every day, but we may not have the information to back up what we need. If they're all quick starts, we may not have something that's stable. It may be like recreating the wheel all the time. That's why when you have a team, if you have a diverse group, understanding what the goal is and then understanding who you have at the table to get you down the field, so to speak, is that then like if you have a project, so you have the ideas first, and then where does it need to go after the ideas? Do you have somebody on your team that's a fact finder that can do the research and get all the background information? Do you have a follow through person that can put together the plan and create the process for you? And do you have an implementer on your team that understands all the tangibles and can demonstrate and showcase the product that you're creating? And then when you have all of it, that's your well-rounded experience for working together.
So when somebody is trying to figure out, kind of how to get out the gate with a project like this, then, and you just kind of laid forth a little framework, how do they actually implement this framework that you were talking about? What does that look like to to find that motivation in the beginning?
Well, for me, I like to start at the end,
Okay.
but this is kind of this is my two fact finder. I want to know what's the result I want to have happen, and
Okay.
then I work backwards.
Sure.
So
Like
that's
reverse engineer the outcome.
yeah, that's my process though. But that's
Okay.
how my MO is built. But that's
Okay.
how I coach people. When I know their MO,
Uh-huh.
then I can help them identify which way they need to come from.
Okay.
Because for me, I am a bottom line, where do I want to go? And then I can get there. Because there's no one plan. There's no right answer.
Hmm.
That's I mean, I think that's the best thing is your motivation today might not be your motivation in 2 months.
Hmm.
So your motivation can change. Your goal can stay the same. So I think it's more important to get clear on your goal first and then understand the motivation. Your motivation might be, how do I get through the next or for the first quarter of this year until we have till everybody can have a vaccine or whatever the circumstance may be. How do I leverage the first part of this year so that I don't have to work so hard second quarter or third quarter?
Yeah, I can see what you're saying, because
Yeah.
it's like there's an opportunity right now that the opportunity will shift, the opportunity will change, or the circumstances will change. So what is the opportunity in the circumstances that we have right now?
I have a little bit, and you know this, but I have had a little bit different experience from 2020
Yeah.
because my 2019 was hard.
Can you tell us a
Uh,
little bit about that?
at the end of 2018, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and had to make a lot of hard choices and switch directions on a dime, and went from, I was in the middle of getting all geared up for 2019 for my business to have to put everything on hold, make hard decisions about what I was going to do, was getting genetic testing and making the decision of surgery or chemo and what my whole cancer treatment plan was. And then basically 2019 was cancer treatment.
Hmm.
So it was 6 months of chemo, or probably like 5 months of chemo, and then surgery, and then a month of radiation, and then getting back on my feet. And then at the beginning of 2020, I was just kind of getting ready to start networking, and then COVID hit, and I was like, oh, okay, can't do that. But I also used all the skills, all my foundational skills from Kolbe came into play with how I dealt with cancer.
Interesting.
I was open to ideas. I was innovative. I also learned that I didn't need to do everything all the time, and to rest. And rest is an action item now on my calendar.
Interesting. I like that.
Um,
Rest is an action item. Tell me more about that.
yeah, yeah, most people they just you if you part and I think part of, because I don't have any genetic markers for breast cancer, so it was all environment and work and stress and
Hmm.
running myself into the ground, and you know trying to do all the things, and which is what I think is part of it, is all it was all
Yeah.
the collective things of me not resting, not taking the time to take care of myself, always kind of being trying to plan and do things ahead and take care of everybody else. So in 2019, when I had no choice but to rest and find joy in the things that were really important, and make things priorities that you know should be priorities, and take the things that weren't priorities off the table, which was phenomenal. But also my MO, and for people that know Kolbe, it's 2396 are my numbers. But I simplify information, I adapt systems, I innovate and can work from a place of risk. And I am in the restore the midsection, high midsection of the implementer. So I'm all about function. Things have to work and make sense how they work. If they don't, I don't want any part of it. But what I took from it and all the things that I learned in 2019, I carried over into 2020 with my MO. It's, what are the possibilities? How do they function? What's the bottom line of what I need to do? But I used it like how I ask questions of my doctors. My surgeon gave me a book about, I'm like, I don't know that I've ever opened that book. I mean, I've flipped through it, but that's not, that was not the way to reach me.
Sure.
But instead of being able to say, I'm not angry at the surgeon for giving me information that way, but understanding myself as I could go back to him and I can say, all right, I need to know what's the checklist,
Mm-hmm.
Instead of the, give me all the details about everything. I don't, that's not how I work. So just give me a checklist. What's the expectation? What do I need to do? When do I need to show up? And then my biggest lesson in all of it was that rest was an action item. And you've got to take the time, which actually brings me back to Kolbe, because Kolbe's all about your mental energy, and you only have so much so much energy. And so if you deplete it, you can renew it, but you have to take the time to let it renew. Cancer actually ended up being I'd like to think of it as a little bit of a gift to slow me down. And it prepared me for 2020 like you wouldn't believe. I mean, there was so much stuff that we had done in 2019. So then when 2020 was, it's like, okay, I already work on Zoom.
Yeah.
I've already isolated because I couldn't be exposed to other things because of the chemo, and my immune system was down. So I was already doing all the things when COVID came around. So then what I found myself doing is helping other people through that moment, through what does it mean having to change all your, all things around so that you can meet the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's amazing how the pain and the suffering and the then how we meet that can end up becoming, I guess you became a guide for others because
Yeah.
you'd been there. You'd walked that path.
Well, and people were very, it was very interesting to have people be like, "Oh, you're so brave," or I can't, you're so positive, or you have such a, good attitude. And it's like, what is my choice? You know, you know, I can either choose to be positive and find all the good things and take it as an opportunity to become better, or what, I became angry and bitter and horrible, and then nobody wants to be around me at all. I don't want that. So it really, but it clears things. So which is also where I think 2020 and going into 2021, we have that same kind of opportunity. Are you clear with who you are? Are you happy? Are you where you want to be? If you're not, then it's, maybe take a look at that. Get clear. What is your motivation? Where do you want to be at the end of 2021? What are the things that, if you were to dare to dream big, what would that be? And then could you get there? Would it take you 5 years? Would it take you a year? Would it take you 6 months? If you put if you planned it, if you got strategic. But this is a little bit about what I do, and when I'm working with people, is helping them. What do you want? Where do you want to be?
Yeah. Yeah. It seems to me like it's almost like this inclination, my inclination to do something, and being okay with that
Right.
and encouraging that and figuring out how to utilize that.
And so a little bit back to the beginning, my background was in art.
Hmm.
It was like, I understand how to create a piece of art. I can frame anything.
Yeah.
And now I do that with people and ideas, and because I needed to move away from like the physical stuff, and because I didn't feel like framing things for people was okay, but it did not fill the need that I had to want to help people 20 years ago when I was doing art and picture framing. It's not necessarily who I am today. So why would I want to stay stuck in that same place? The one thing that didn't change was how I worked,
Hmm.
and my MO. That has not changed in 20 years. So if you don't have to be stuck, so if you've ever wanted to make a move, if you've ever wanted to do something different, if you've ever if you ever been hit with a hardship or a bad medical diagnosis like I was, what would you do different? And where, what does that mean? The ability to change and grow and then move on to the next thing is more possible today than it's ever been.
Hmm.
You're not required to be the same person and do the same thing forever.
Hmm. That's exciting. It's exciting for us as we're looking into the future, as we're sort of taking a breath, kind of resetting, getting a
Right,
chance to think about who we want to be, how we want to show up to the world when things are different again, when things are a little bit back to normal, if you will.
right. Well, and yeah, are you going to appreciate everything more? Are you going to appreciate taking your time and having a meal at a restaurant?
Yeah. Oh
Are you
man.
going to appreciate your wait staff and tip them? Are you going to appreciate, going to a party? Are you going to appreciate the amount of detail your host puts into an event? Are you going to appreciate that and be there with a joyful and positive attitude when we are all able to gather again? How are you going to come to the table?
Mm. Wouldn't that be just amazing that the world would come to life again with gratitude? What a beautiful idea.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful. Hmm.
I have a client right now, and she misses her grandkids terribly.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we discussed was, how are you going to plan for the joy? So plan for it now. Pick where you
Sure.
want to go. Get, you could order little things from the place you want to take them as a hint and send them the hint. Maybe it's, getting on a Zoom call with your grandkids to have them help map it out. We're going to have an adventure from June to August. Let's figure out what that's going to be, you know? So I'm a big proponent of like choose wisely. I used to always love the choose your own adventure kind of stories, but you get to choose. So you can choose to be disappointed and unhappy, or you can choose to start like setting yourself up to have like awesome experiences.
Mm.
How are you preparing yourself for good times to come back?
Mm.
You didn't have to learn a new skill, or you didn't have to, whatever. Sometimes it should, I think it's enough that you took time for yourself. You know, you you know, during the one thing and during 2019, I learned I appreciate naps more than ever. because during that year, if I got tired, I'd lay down.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what I was doing, if I was working or if I had to cancel an appointment, I would do it because that was important to me.
And like you said before, if rest is an action item, I mean it's you're getting something done by
Yeah.
resting in that
Hmm.
situation. Yeah, which is hard for a lot of us to accept, but it's true. Yeah.
We choose how we show up. We choose what we bring to the table. One thing I did this year was I got certified as a youth specialist with Kolbe
Mhm.
because part of my what I saw happening was with kids staying home. And I even noticed this before is that kids are given these expectations of how they need to be in the world without being able to discover who they are first. Then they don't thrive because a great example would be my son who is because I know his Colby, I'd be able to go to his defense with teachers because they would expect him to be, give more detail or more information, and they would actually say in conferences, he just wants to give me the bottom line and not, show his work. And I'm like, yes, I know. I know. I will try to help explain to him why he needs to show this to you in this case. But how he works is he is a a bottom line person. He's the kid that he would have a complex math problem and he would say the answer, and then they'd be like, well, how did you get to that? And he says, well, that's the answer, because he could do the math in his head.
Mhm.
So it's interesting. But what I think is, if kids understand how they work and they have the freedom to be themselves, then they can, be guided to finding the right path for them earlier, and to pursue things that they really would love to do
Mm.
versus being stuck. But also right now, with parents and kids, having had to work from home and work together and not understanding, if they don't have an understanding of how each other works, you know, is that creating stress for everybody in the house? Or if you understood everybody's Colby, could you help them be set up for success?
Mm.
Such as, if you have, well, just to say that schools are set up really for the fact finder follow throughs, it's information and
Right.
systems. And so the kids that are initiating quick starts and initiating implementers tend to get in more trouble
Mhm.
because they're not, you know, the detailed specific follow through people
Mhm.
or information people. They're hands on, they need to move. They they want to tinker with things and test things out, and a lot of times that comes across or is put in a box of they're being disruptive.
Mhm. It's frowned upon
And
for sure, yeah.
yeah, and that's not what the problem is at
Mm.
all. So that's why I added it, so I could have, offer that up for families, but I to expand what I was doing, and for not only the kids understanding, but then you've got, companies with people working at home and they're having stresses at home and then stresses in trying to do their work. What if everybody had this under was able to understand the foundation from where everybody was coming, so we could eliminate the stresses and help everybody be set up for success.
Mm. Yeah, that's good. I know that we actually had our kid, one of our kids, take the assessment to take the Colby, and then visited with you, got your insights in it, and it was really helpful to kind of understand how we could better help our child communicate, how we could help them work with their teachers, how we could help them focus on their grades when maybe their focus was elsewhere, or that sort of thing. And to, I think, like you were talking about before, the idea of maybe they're not being disrespectful right now. Maybe it's just their body needs to move. Maybe they're not, you know, not caring about learning, but because they're being bombarded with so many details, it's hard to take it all in. And so that's hard to learn when you're being bombarded with things that you're not used to, or don't just like sink in as easily as they might for somebody else. But you might care. You might care if it were, like your little checklist that you were asking your doctor for. It's easier to care when you get it, when you understand what they're trying to say. And so anyway, I appreciate the attention to the individual that you give, and the insights that you have to offer people when it comes to interacting with others and making things work more successfully as a team, and then also as an individual. Jen, where can people find you or connect with you?
They can find me, and our website is heinsdesign.com. And there on the homepage, I have a sign-in for a communication list. And if you go there and put in your information, then you'll be added to our email list, and I can reach out to you that way with upcoming projects. But I'm also, Heins Design is also on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn.
Okay, so you can find Jen there at those links that she mentioned, and we'll put those in the show notes at voiceofinfluence.net/podcast. And any offers that she has on her website, you can pay special attention to those. Jen, what advice do you have for someone who wants to be a voice of influence?
I think that I would go to Kathy Kolbe's words, is that it's about the freedom to be yourself. If you are free to be yourself, it kind of will help everything line up. It will be your freedom to work well. It's your freedom to love well. It's your freedom to be well, is when you can be yourself. If you have to pretend to be something you're not, then there'll always be a little bit of an impediment to it being true.
Thank you so much for being here and for sharing with our listeners. I appreciate it, Jen.
Thank you.